The air is thick with the chemical sweetness of hairspray and something else, something sharp and acrid, like burned ambition. Fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting a sterile, unforgiving glow on the rows of black leather chairs. Everything is chrome and glass and mirrors. So many mirrors. In every single one, I can see a version of myself I don't recognize. A woman with a haunted look in her eyes, swallowed by a gray cashmere beanie that hides the patchy, uncertain fuzz on her scalp. A woman with a clipboard is approaching, her heels clicking a sharp, impatient rhythm on the polished concrete floor. Her smile is a brilliant, predatory slash of red lipstick. "Can I help you?" she asks, her voice a little too loud, a little too bright. Her eyes flick from my beanie to the simple, loose-fitting clothes I'm wearing. It's not a question. It's a judgment. I don't answer right away. I let the silence stretch, just for a second. I let her see me. I let her dismiss me. My gaze drifts past her, to the woman in the last chair by the window. Her back is to me. She's laughing, a high, tinkling sound that grates against my nerves like shattered glass. She's running her perfectly manicured fingers through a client's long, blonde hair. Her own hair is a cascade of honey-colored waves, gleaming under the lights. It's the kind of hair I used to have. The woman with the clipboard clears her throat. "Mom?" I finally look at her. "I'm here to see Chloe," I say, my voice steady, betraying none of the tremor I feel deep in my bones. The woman's smile tightens. "Chloe is with a client. Do you have an appointment?" "No," I say. "I don't need one." My eyes are locked on the back of Chloe's head. As if she can feel my stare, she turns. Her smile falters for a fraction of a second as she sees me. There's a flicker of confusion, then annoyance. She doesn't recognize me. Of course she doesn't. The last time she saw a picture of me, I had hair down to my waist, and the light of a life I believed in was still in my eyes. The woman she's looking at now is a ghost. A pale, hairless stranger. She says something to her client and stands up, walking towards me with a practiced, swaying gait. She stops a few feet away, crossing her arms over her chest. The name Chloe is stitched in pink cursive over the pocket of her stylish black smock. "Yes," she says, the word clipped. "As you can see, I'm a little busy." She looks at me, really looks at me this time, and I see the moment it dawns on her. The slow, widening horror in her eyes. The way the color drains from her perfectly made-up face. Her red lips part, but no sound comes out. Her name, the one my husband used to whisper into the phone late at night when he thought I was asleep, is right there on her chest. "Chloe." "You." She finally breathes, the word a poison dart. I give her a small, tired smile. It doesn't reach my eyes. "Me," I say. I lift the clipboard in my own hands, the one I brought with me. "I believe we have some business to discuss." "About the lease?" I tap a finger on the official-looking document on top. "You see, I'm the new owner of this building. I'm your landlord." Her mouth opens and closes, like a fish gasping for air. And then she screams. It's not a sound of fear. It's a sound of pure, unadulterated rage. The sound of a world tilting off its axis. My world tilted a long time ago. I'm just here to return the favor. If you've ever felt like your world was ripped out from under you, like you were completely and utterly betrayed, tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. Your stories matter. And if you feel a connection here, please subscribe. It helps me share more stories like this, and it means more than you can possibly imagine. Just a year ago, the loudest sound in my life was the buzzing of bees in the lavender bushes I planted along the walkway. My life was quiet. It was ordered. Mark and I had a system, a rhythm. We'd been married for 8 years, together for 10. We were that couple. The ones who finished each other's sentences, who held hands at the grocery store. We had a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. A neat little blueprint for a neat little life. Our house was our sanctuary, a cozy little craftsman we'd poured our hearts and savings into. The walls were painted a soft sage green, the color of new beginnings. I spent my weekends in the garden, my hands buried in the rich, dark earth. I believed, with a certainty that feels foolish now, that anything could grow with enough care and attention. My hair was my vanity. I admit it. It was thick and dark, falling in waves past my shoulders, almost to my waist. Mark loved it. He used to bury his face in it at night, telling me it smelled like sunshine and home. It was a part of me, a part of us. It was the living, growing symbol of the life I thought we had. A life of health, of simple abundance. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. Mark was a project manager for a small commercial development firm. He was ambitious, smart. He talked about starting his own company one day. I worked part-time as a graphic designer from a small studio I'd set up in our spare bedroom. It was a perfect balance. We were a team, or so I thought. We were building an empire of two, brick by boring, beautiful brick. I remember the day it all started to crack. It was a Tuesday in April. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. The tulips I'd planted in the fall were finally blooming, a riot of red and yellow along the fence. I had a doctor's appointment for a routine checkup. I'd been feeling tired for weeks, more than usual, and there was a nagging ache in my side that I'd been dismissing as a pulled muscle. Mark was supposed to come with me, but he'd called that morning. "Hey, babe, so sorry," he'd said, his voice tinny over the car's Bluetooth. "This meeting with investors just popped up. It's huge. You know how it is. You're okay to go on your own, right?" "It's just a checkup." "Of course," I'd said, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. "It's nothing. Go nail your meeting." "You're the best," he'd said and hung up. The doctor's office smelled of antiseptic and anxiety. Dr. Evans had been my physician for years. She was a kind, no-nonsense woman with sharp eyes. She did the examination, her face impassive. But when she was done, she didn't smile her usual reassuring smile. She sat down on the stool across from me, her hands folded in her lap. "Laura," she said, and the way she said my name made the floor drop out from under me. "I want to run some more tests. There's a lump. I want to be sure, but I think we need to schedule a biopsy as soon as possible." The word hung in the air between us. Lump. Biopsy. The unspoken word that followed was the one that stopped my heart. Cancer. The world went fuzzy at the edges. The hum of the lights grew louder. I remember nodding, hearing her words about scheduling and next steps as if through a long tunnel. I walked out of the office into that brilliant, sunny day feeling like I'd stepped into a different dimension. The tulips seemed too bright, the sky too blue. It all felt like a mockery. When I got home, the house was empty. I called Mark. He didn't answer. I texted him. "Call me. It's important." An hour later, he texted back. "Still in meeting. What's up?" I couldn't bring myself to type the words. "Just call me when you're done." He didn't come home until after 9. He walked in, smiling, loosening his tie. "We got it," he announced, dropping his briefcase on the floor. "The funding came through. We're celebrating." I brought champagne. He stopped when he saw my face. I was sitting on the couch in the dark. I hadn't moved for hours. "What's wrong?" he asked, his smile fading. I told him. I watched the series of emotions flicker across his handsome face. Shock, concern, fear. He came over and wrapped his arms around me, holding me tight. "It's going to be okay," he whispered into my hair. "It's probably nothing. And if it is something, we'll fight it. Together. You and me. In sickness and in health, remember?" I clung to him, believing him. I wanted to believe him more than I'd ever wanted anything in my life. I let his words be the anchor in my swirling sea of terror. Together. We would fight it together. He held me all night. But even then, wrapped in his arms, a tiny, cold splinter of doubt lodged itself in my heart. His embrace felt different. A little too tight. A little too performative. Like he was holding on to the idea of me, not the reality of the terrified woman in his arms. It was a feeling I would come to know all too well. The biopsy confirmed it. Stage 3 ovarian cancer. The words were a death sentence and a declaration of war all at once. The treatment plan was aggressive. Surgery, followed by months of chemotherapy. It was a brutal roadmap, and I was terrified. Mark was a rock. At first. He took time off work for my surgery. He sat by my hospital bed, holding my hand, reading to me. He brought me flowers that filled the sterile room with the scent of a life I was desperate to get back to. Our friends and family rallied around us, bringing meals, offering support. Everyone said it. "You're so lucky to have Mark. He's so devoted," and I would smile and nod because on the surface he was. He was playing the part of the doting husband perfectly. But the performance began to fray at the edges when the chemo started. The first round hit me like a truck. The nausea was relentless. The fatigue was a lead blanket I couldn't throw off. I was a ghost in my own home, shuffling from the bed to the bathroom and back again. Mark tried. He brought me ginger ale and crackers. He sat with me while the four dripped poison into my veins, a poison meant to save my life. But I saw the change in his eyes. The light of patience was dimming, replaced by a flicker of resentment. He started sighing a lot. Heavy, put upon sighs when I'd ask for a glass of water, or when I couldn't keep down the toast he'd made me. Then my hair started to fall out. It began subtly. A few extra strands on my pillow in the morning. A small clump in the shower drain. I tried to ignore it, but soon it was undeniable. Every time I brushed my hair, the brush would be full of it. It was horrifying. It was like my body was shedding its identity, piece by piece. One night, I was sitting in bed, running my fingers through my hair, and a thick lock came away in my hand. I stared at it, lying limp and lifeless in my palm. A strangled sob escaped my lips. Mark was in the doorway, watching me. He didn't come in. He didn't hold me. He just stood there, his face a mask of something I couldn't read. It looked like pity, but it felt like disgust. "Maybe you should just cut it all off," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Get it over with." He turned and walked away. I sat there, clutching the lock of my own hair, and I had never felt so alone. The next day, I asked my sister, Anna, to come over and shave my head. We did it in the bathroom. We cried together as the long, dark strands fell to the tiled floor. When it was done, I looked in the mirror. I didn't know the person looking back at me. Her skull was pale and vulnerable. Her eyes were huge in her gaunt face. She looked like a victim. Anna told me I looked like a warrior. I tried to believe her. When Mark came home that night, I was sitting on the couch, wearing a soft beanie. I took it off when he walked in. I wanted him to see me. To really see me. He stopped dead in the middle of the living room. He stared. He didn't say anything for a long time. Not "you're beautiful," not "you're so brave," nothing. "Wow," was all he said, a strange, hollow sound. That's really something he wouldn't meet my eyes. He walked past me into the kitchen and opened the fridge. That night, he took a pillow and a blanket and went to sleep on the couch. "I just don't want to disturb you," he said. "You need your rest." He never slept in our bed again. His late nights at work became more frequent. The networking dinners piled up. He stopped talking about the future. He stopped talking about us. The house, once our sanctuary, became a silent, cold space filled with unspoken resentments and the smell of sickness. I was fighting for my life, and my husband was treating me like an inconvenience, like a problem he couldn't wait to solve by simply walking away. The loneliness was a physical presence, a weight on my chest that made it hard to breathe. The chemo was a war inside my body, but the silence in my own home was a different kind of torture. Mark moved through the house like a polite stranger. He'd leave a cup of tea on my nightstand in the morning before he left for work, a gesture that felt less like care and more like an obligation fulfilled. Our conversations were brief and transactional. "Do you need anything from the store? How was your treatment?" He never waited for a real answer. He stopped touching me altogether. A hand on my shoulder, a kiss on the cheek, all of it vanished. I was untouchable. I was contaminated. One evening, I was feeling a little stronger, and I tried to initiate something. I put on a silk robe, one he'd always loved, and met him at the door when he came home. He looked at me, at my bald head and the pale skin of my collarbones, and he physically recoiled. Just for a second, but I saw it. "I'm really tired, Laura," he said, sidestepping me. "Brutal day." I felt myself shrink. The silk robe suddenly felt like a costume for a play I was no longer a part of. I went to the bedroom and took it off, putting on my old, comfortable flannel pajamas. I felt foolish and ugly, and so profoundly unwanted. The evidence of his other life started to appear in small, sharp fragments. A receipt from a restaurant I'd never heard of, for a dinner for two on a night he was supposedly working late, the scent of a cloying, floral perfume on his suit jacket. He started guarding his phone like it was a state secret, angling it away from me whenever a text came in, which was often. My sister Anna saw it all. She'd come over to sit with me during the day, her presence a warm, steady comfort in the cold house. "He's a coward, Laura," she said one afternoon, her voice tight with anger as she fluffed my pillows. "I see the way he looks at you. Or rather, the way he doesn't look at you." "He's just stressed," I'd reply, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "The medical bills, his new project at work, it's a lot." "Bull," she said bluntly. "It's a lot for you. You're the one going through hell. He's supposed to be holding your hand through it, not running away." I didn't want to believe her. Admitting she was right meant admitting my marriage was a lie. Admitting that the man I had built my life with was capable of abandoning me when I needed him most. The denial was a shield, flimsy as it was, against a pain I wasn't sure I could survive on top of everything else. The breaking point came on a Thursday. It was the day after my 4th round of chemo. I felt like I'd been scraped out from the inside. Every bone ached. I had managed to drag myself to the kitchen for some water when I saw his laptop open on the counter. He never left it open. He was usually so careful. A message had popped up on the screen. It was from a name I didn't know, Chloe. The message was simple. "Last night was amazing.
Can't stop thinking about you.
See you tonight? XO." The room tilted. My hand flew to my mouth to stifle a gasp. I clicked on the message history. It was all there. Weeks of it. Months. Flirtatious texts, plans for dinner, inside jokes. And then the pictures. Pictures of them together. At a bar, laughing. In a park, his arm around her. Her hair was long and blonde and perfect. She was vibrant and glowing with health. She was everything I wasn't. There was one picture that shattered me. It was a selfie of them, cheeks pressed together, smiling. In the background, I could see the wallpaper of a hotel room. The timestamp was from the night of my 2nd chemo treatment, a night I had been so violently ill I had begged him to stay home with me. He'd told me he had an unavoidable, emergency meeting with an out-of-town client. The betrayal was so absolute, so devastating, it felt like the cancer was eating me from the outside in. 2. I sank to the floor, the cold towel pressing against my skin. I couldn't breathe. The man who had vowed to love me in sickness and in health was living a whole other life while I was fighting for mine. I heard his car pull into the driveway. I didn't move. I stayed there on the kitchen floor, the laptop open in front of me like a tombstone. He walked in, whistling.
He stopped when he saw me.
He saw the laptop. The color drained from his face. "Laura," he said, his voice a panicked whisper. "It's not what you think." The classic line. So cliché, it would have been funny if it wasn't destroying my life. I finally looked up at him. I felt nothing.
No anger, no sadness.
Just a vast, cold emptiness. "Isn't it?" I asked, my voice raspy. "Isn't it exactly what I think?" He started to stammer, a pathetic string of excuses and denials. "She's just a friend, a colleague. We were celebrating the deal. On the night, I was so sick I thought I was dying." I interrupted, my voice dangerously quiet. "You were celebrating?" He had the grace to look ashamed, but it was fleeting. His expression hardened, shifting from guilt to defensiveness. "Look, this has been hard on me, too," he burst out, his voice rising. "Do you have any idea what it's like? Coming home to this every day? The smell of sickness, the constant complaining. I can't breathe in this house anymore." His words were like slaps to the face, each one more stunning than the last. "You're not the same person, Laura," he continued, his voice dripping with a cruel kind of pity. You're just not. I look at you, and I can't do it. I can't handle it." There it was. The truth. Uglier and more brutal than I could have ever imagined. I wasn't a wife to him anymore. I was a burden. A disease he wanted to cure himself of. "So you found someone healthy," I stated, the emptiness inside me beginning to curdle into a slow, hot rage. "Someone with great hair."
He didn't deny it.
"Chloe, she understands me. She's fun. It's easy with her."
Easy.
That one word sealed it. He was leaving me, his wife of 8 years who was fighting cancer, for someone who was easy. I stood up, my legs shaking. "Get out," I whispered. "What?"
Get out.
"Of my house." My voice grew stronger with each word. He actually looked surprised, as if he expected me to beg him to stay, to fight for him. But there was nothing left to fight for. The man I had loved was gone, replaced by this cruel, weak stranger. "Fine," he spat, his face twisting into an ugly sneer.
Fine.
This was a mistake anyway. He went to the bedroom and packed a bag. I stood in the living room, listening to the sounds of him erasing himself from our life. The scrape of hangers, the zip of a suitcase. He walked out without another word. The front door clicked shut behind him, the sound echoing in the sudden, crushing silence. I stood there for a long time. Then my legs gave out, and I collapsed onto the floor, the raw, agonizing sobs finally tearing their way out of my chest. He had left me. He had left me to die alone. The days that followed were a blur of pain, both physical and emotional. The house felt cavernous, each empty room a testament to my failure. His absence was a presence, a ghost that haunted every corner. I'd see his coffee mug by the sink, his shoes by the door, and the grief would hit me all over again, a fresh wave of agony. Chemo was my only constant, a brutal rhythm in a life that had lost all its music. I'd go to the clinic, a ghost in the passenger seat as my sister drove, and sit in the chair as the chemicals dripped into my arm. I was surrounded by other people fighting their own battles, but I felt utterly alone. They had husbands, wives, partners holding their hands. I had the phantom limb of a marriage, an ache where my support system used to be. Then the legal papers arrived. A courier delivered a thick manila envelope. Divorce proceedings. Mark wasn't just leaving me. He was coming after our assets. He wanted to sell the house. He claimed half of my freelance business income. He argued that since my future earning potential was uncertain, he was entitled to a larger share of our savings. It was breathtakingly cruel. He was kicking me when I was already on the ground. The real salt in the wound was social media. Against my better judgment, I'd look. Chloe's profile was public. It was a curated gallery of her perfect life with my husband. Photos of them on a weekend getaway to a winery, clinking glasses, his arm wrapped possessively around her. A picture of them at a concert, his face buried in her perfect blonde hair. The caption read, "Finally found my forever." Forever. He had promised me forever. Each photo was a dagger. I saw them in our favorite restaurant. I saw her wearing a necklace I recognized, one I had bought for Mark for our anniversary, a simple silver chain he'd claimed to have lost months ago. They weren't just building a new life. They were desecrating the ruins of mine. I hit rock bottom. The fight drained out of me. The cancer was a relentless enemy, and now Mark was another. I was too tired to fight on two fronts. I started missing meals. I stopped answering calls from my family. What was the point? I would lie in bed, the curtains drawn, and think about just stopping. Stopping the chemo. Stopping the legal battle. Just letting go. It seemed so much easier than fighting. One afternoon, I was staring at my reflection in the darkened screen of the television. I saw a skeletal woman with dark circles like bruises under her eyes. My skin had a grayish, translucent quality. I saw the port in my chest, a small bump under the skin, the entry point for the poison that was supposed to be saving me. I looked defeated. I looked like I was already gone. And then something inside me snapped. A spark of anger, deep and hot, ignited in the cold emptiness. He was not going to win. They were not going to win. They were not going to dance on my grave. I had survived the diagnosis. I had survived the surgery. I was surviving the chemo. I would be damned if I was going to let a weak man and his vapid mistress be the things that finally broke me. The anger was a fuel I hadn't felt in months. It burned away the despair, the self-pity. It cleared my head. I thought of Chloe's smug smile in those photos. I thought of Mark's cowardly excuses. He thought I was weak. He thought I was a victim, a liability he could cut loose. He was about to find out how wrong he was. I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking, but this time it was with adrenaline, not weakness. I scrolled through my contacts and found the number for a lawyer a friend had recommended months ago, a woman known for being a shark. Her name was Sarah Chen. She answered on the second ring, her voice crisp and professional. Sarah Chen. My name is Laura, I said, my voice stronger than it had been in months. I need your help. My husband left me. He's trying to take everything, and I want to fight back. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Okay, Laura, Sarah said, her voice softening slightly. Tell me everything. And I did. I told her about the cancer, the chemo, the abandonment. I told her about Chloe, the late nights, the financial papers he was trying to get me to sign. I poured out the whole ugly story. When I was finished, there was a long silence. He did this while you were undergoing chemotherapy, Sarah stated, not a question but a confirmation. Her voice was cold now, hard as steel. Yes. Okay, Laura, she said, and I could hear the shift in her tone. The shark was circling. Here's what we're going to do. First, you are not to sign anything. Second, I want you to gather every financial document you can find. Bank statements, tax returns, credit card bills, everything. He thinks you're weak and distracted.
We're going to use that.
We're going to go through his finances with a fine-toothed comb. Men like him, they always get sloppy. They always leave a trail. For the first time since the diagnosis, I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't the soft, gentle hope of recovery. It was a sharp, dangerous hope. The hope of justice. He's not just going to lose, Sarah said, her voice a low promise. He's going to pay. The battle began. Sarah was a force of nature. She filed countermotions. She buried Mark's lawyer in paperwork. She fought for me with a ferocity that gave me strength.
My job was to dig.
While I recovered from my chemo treatments, I channeled my anger and grief into a single, focused task. Finding the paper trail Sarah promised was there. I spent hours in my home office, surrounded by boxes of financial records. It was tedious, draining work, but it was also a distraction. It was a mission. I pieced together our financial life for the past 5 years. And slowly, a pattern began to emerge. Mark had been lying about money for a long time. There were credit cards I never knew existed. Cash withdrawals from our joint business account that were listed as client expenses but had no corresponding receipts. Then I found it. The big one. 2 years ago, Mark had used a significant portion of our savings, money we had earmarked for investments, to form a shell LLC. He told me he was investing it in a low-risk mutual fund. The statements he showed me were forgeries. He had actually used the LLC to purchase a small commercial property in an up-and-coming part of town, a single-unit storefront. My heart pounded in my chest. Why would he hide that from me? I did a property search online. My hands were trembling so badly, I could barely type the address. The results came up. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. The listed tenant for the property was Chloe's Chic Boutique, a high-end hair salon. It all clicked into place. The money he'd been siphoning, the secret credit cards, the lies. He hadn't just been having an affair. He had been investing in her. He had used our money, my money, to fund his mistress's dream. He had literally built her business on the foundations of our marriage. I felt a surge of white-hot rage, so intense it made me dizzy. This went beyond infidelity. This was a calculated, long-term betrayal. He had been planning his exit strategy for years, setting her up for a comfortable future, while I was planning a life with him. I called Sarah immediately. I could hear her sharp intake of breath as I explained what I'd found. "Oh, he's a special kind of stupid, isn't he?" she said, a grim satisfaction in her voice. "He put the property in an LLC, but he funded it with marital assets. He didn't cover his tracks well enough. Laura, this is it. This is the leverage we needed. This is our checkmate." The divorce proceedings became a war room. Sarah was the general, and I was her intelligence officer. We had him. He had no idea we knew about the building. His lawyer continued with the aggressive tactics, painting Mark as the victim, the long-suffering husband of a sick, demanding wife. It was disgusting, but I held on to my secret. I let them think they had the upper hand. The final settlement negotiation was held in a sterile conference room. Mark was there, looking smug and confident. Chloe wasn't present, but her presence was a toxic cloud in the room. Mark sat across the table, refusing to look at me. He looked healthy, tanned from a recent vacation with her. I, on the other hand, was pale and thin, my chemo journey nearing its end, but its toll still evident. I was wearing a soft silk scarf over my head, the first shoots of new hair still too sparse to face the world. He thought he was looking at a broken woman. His lawyer laid out their final offer. They would let me keep the house, but only if I signed away all rights to his business and our shared investment portfolio. It was an insulting, predatory offer. Mark's lawyer finished his speech. "We believe this is more than generous, given the circumstances." Sarah let the silence hang in the air for a moment. Then she smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. "That's a very interesting offer," she said calmly. "But we have a counter." She slid a single file across the polished table. "We'll let you keep your precious business. We'll even let you keep the sad little investment portfolio you've been pillaging. In exchange, Laura will be taking sole ownership of one asset you seem to have forgotten to disclose." She named the Shell LLC. She stated the address of the commercial property. I watched Mark's face. The smug confidence vanished, replaced by sheer, primal panic. He turned white as a sheet. He looked at his lawyer, who was frantically shuffling through his own papers, a look of dawning horror on his face. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time that day, and in my eyes he didn't see a victim. He saw the woman who had just dismantled his entire world. "You can't," he stammered. That's not a marital asset, isn't it?" Sarah purred. "Funded on May 14th, 2 years ago, with $150,000 transferred directly from your joint savings account. An account, I might add, that Laura's name is also on. We have the bank records. We have the LLC formation documents. We have it all." She leaned forward. "So here's the deal. You sign over the LLC and the property to Laura, free and clear, and we walk away from everything else. Or we can take this to a judge. We can present evidence of financial fraud, infidelity, and marital abandonment during a catastrophic illness. We can subpoena your little girlfriend and put her on the stand to testify about how you used your wife's money to set her up in business. Now, you tell me, which option sounds better to you?" Mark looked like he was going to be sick. He was trapped. He knew it. His lawyer was whispering furiously in his ear. After a long, tense silence, he slumped in his chair, utterly defeated. "Fine," he choked out, the word thick with hatred. He signed the papers. He didn't look at me again. I walked out of that conference room feeling lighter. The weight of his betrayal was still there, but it was no longer crushing me. I had won. Not just the property, but something more valuable. I had won back my power. The transfer of ownership was handled quietly through the lawyers over the next few weeks. Mark and Chloe had no idea who the new owner of the building was, only that the LLC had been sold. I waited. I finished my last round of chemotherapy. I started to heal. The fuzz on my head started to grow into something resembling hair. I bought a new wardrobe, clothes that fit the new, leaner version of myself. I waited until I was strong enough. And then, on a crisp autumn morning, I walked into her salon. The aftermath of Chloe's scream was a sudden, shocked silence. Every client in the salon, every stylist with scissors poised mid-snip, froze. All eyes were on us. On her, with her face a mask of disbelief and rage, and on me, the quiet, unassuming woman in the beanie holding the clipboard that had just detonated her world. "You can't be serious," she finally hissed, her voice low and trembling. She snatched the paper from my clipboard. Her eyes, wide and frantic, scanned the legal document. It was all there in black and white. The deed transfer, the LLC ownership change, my name. Laura Jensen. The name of the woman she had helped destroy. "The rent was due yesterday," I said calmly, my voice carrying easily in the silent room. "I noticed the check hasn't cleared. There's also a late fee, as stipulated in Section 7, Paragraph 3 of the lease agreement your boyfriend so cleverly negotiated." I let that sink in. The lease agreement he had set up. The trap he had unknowingly built for her, which I now controlled. "Mark wouldn't do this," she stammered, shaking her head as if to physically dislodge the reality of the situation. "He wouldn't let you do this." "Mark doesn't have a choice," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "He signed it all over. It was either this building or a lengthy and very public court case about financial fraud. He chose to save himself. I'm sure you understand." Her face crumpled. The realization that he had sacrificed her to save his own skin was a visible blow. The perfect couple, the forever love, was a sham built on my money and his cowardice. In that moment, I almost felt a sliver of pity for her. Almost. Then I remembered the social media posts, the stolen necklace, the life she flaunted while I was fighting to stay alive. The pity vanished. "Get out," she snarled. "Get out of my salon." "This isn't just your salon anymore, Chloe," I said a little louder now for the benefit of her staff and clients who were watching this soap opera unfold with rapt attention. "This is my building. And as your new landlord, I'll be conducting a full inspection of the premises tomorrow at 9 a.m. to ensure everything is up to code. I'll also need to see your business license and proof of insurance. Just routine, of course." I gave her a thin, cold smile. "I'll see myself out. Don't be late with that rent check." I turned and walked out, my back straight, my head held high. I didn't look back. I could feel the heat of her glare on my back, but it didn't touch me. The air outside was cool and crisp, and for the first time in over a year, I felt like I could truly breathe. The revenge wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, meticulous, and administered by 1,000 paper cuts. I became the landlord from hell, but a perfectly legal one. I had Sarah review the lease Mark had signed with Chloe. It was, ironically, an ironclad, landlord-friendly document he had been very proud of. I used every single clause. The inspection the next day was a nightmare for her. I brought in a professional inspector who found 3 minor code violations. A faulty wire in the back room, an issue with the plumbing under one of the wash stations. I sent her a formal notice giving her 7 days to fix them at her own expense, as per the lease. Her rent check arrived, but I enforced the late fee down to the penny. A week later, I sent a notice of a rent increase, the maximum allowable percentage, to take effect as soon as the lease permitted. She called me, screaming. I let her go to voicemail. I enforced the clause about noise levels, sending a warning when a client complained about the loud music. I enforced the rules about signage in the windows. I scheduled quarterly maintenance checks that were really just inspections to disrupt her business and keep her on edge. Mark tried to intervene. He called me, his voice alternating between begging and threatening. "Laura, you have to stop this," he pleaded. "You're ruining her. She can't afford the rent increase. The repairs are costing a fortune." "That sounds like a you and Chloe problem, Mark," I said, examining my fingernails. They were growing back strong. "Not a me problem. You created this situation. I'm just managing my investment." "This isn't about investment. This is revenge," he yelled. "Call it whatever you want," I said, and I hung up. The stress began to show on them. The salon, once a chic and bustling place, started to look tired. Chloe was always on edge, snapping at her employees. Clients started to leave. The happy, glowing couple from the Instagram photos was gone. I'd see them occasionally, arguing in the parking lot behind the building. He looked tired and haggard. She looked furious. The easy life he had craved had become a complicated, expensive nightmare of his own making. I used the first of the increased rent checks to write a donation to the cancer wing of the hospital where I'd received my treatment. I signed it from a grateful survivor. It was the best money I had ever spent. 6 months after I became her landlord, the end came. A for lease sign went up in the window of Chloe's chic boutique. She had gone out of business. She couldn't keep up with the rent, the repairs, the constant, soul-crushing pressure of my perfectly legal, perfectly relentless presence as her landlord. I heard through the grapevine that she and Mark had split up. The financial strain had been the final straw. Their relationship, built on a foundation of lies and my stolen money, couldn't withstand the pressure of reality. He had wanted someone easy, it turned out. Destroying someone's life and getting caught has consequences that are anything but. I'm in remission now. My hair has grown back, short and curly, completely different from before. I kind of like it.
It feels like me.
The new me. I sold the house, the one with the sage green walls. It held too many ghosts. I moved into a bright, airy apartment downtown with a small balcony where I keep pots of lavender and rosemary. Sometimes I walk by the old salon. It's still empty. The ghost of Chloe's name is still visible on the glass. I don't feel a triumphant glee when I see it. I don't feel hatred or anger anymore. I feel quiet. A quiet, settled peace. I survived. That's the real victory. The revenge was just a byproduct of my survival. It was the act of taking back the power that had been stolen from me. The scars are still there, of course. The physical ones from the surgery, the invisible ones on my heart. They remind me of the battle I fought. They remind me of how strong I had to become. Mark tried to reach out a few months ago, a rambling, self-pitying email about how sorry he was, how he'd made a terrible mistake. I deleted it without replying. His apology was for him, not for me. I don't need his absolution. I have my own. My life isn't the neat blueprint I once had. It's messy and uncertain and completely my own. I'm not just a survivor of cancer. I'm a survivor of betrayal. And I've learned that sometimes the best way to rebuild your life is to start by taking a wrecking ball to the parts that were trying to bury you. You clear the rubble, you take a deep breath, and you start planting a new garden, one that will bloom just for you. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Your strength is real, and your story deserves to be heard. Thanks for being here with me. Subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life, and I'm grateful for every single one of you.